the great wealth transfer. The number keeps inching up as far as how much money women are going to receive.
Right.
That's very exciting, also terrifying if they're not empowered with agency. And then the other thing is just simply the sheer snowballing of time and deregulation around things that women can do with their money and sort of the opportunities for women to grow their capital.
This is the Angel Next Door podcast, where we will talk about all things angel investing. What it is, who does it, how do we find them, what does it mean to invest in an early stage company? If you have ever wondered how you can affect the change you want to see in the world, then tune in to learn more. In this episode, I'm talking with my friend and fellow podcaster, Syama Bunten, as we talk about entrepreneurship, fashion, and building wealth. Syama tells us about writing letters to the White House as a determined 12-year-old, to orchestrating global luxury brands and empowering women through groundbreaking summits. You'll get a behind-the-scenes look at how Wealth Catalyst and the Wealth Catalyst Summits are changing the narrative around women, money, and agency. Plus, hear about the ambitious 32-city Freedom Tour coming in 2026 and see if your city is on the list. Enjoy the show. Syama, welcome to the Angel Next Door podcast.
Thank you, Marcia. So happy to be here.
I am so happy to have you. We have so many things to talk about. There's so much going on. And 2025 was an amazing year. You created these incredible summits. You brought people together. We talked about wealth and women and people and money. I love everything about it. And 2026 is just going to be so much bigger. So we'll have to talk about all the things. But first, I'm going to turn your own question that you have from your podcast on you to start off. Okay, so for our listeners, Syama has a podcast called Getting Rich Together, and it is fantastic. I always learn amazing things and get to hear about people and all the amazing things they've done. But you always start by asking people about how they got started thinking about money, how they got started in their life. What were they doing when they were about 8, 10 years old? So maybe you can tell us what you were doing at that point.
Oh my God. So when I was I'd say like the big moment for me was probably like 10 to 12. And I was part of a performing arts school, which was like a really big part of my life. And people who know me now are like, oh yeah, totally. You were on stage at a very young age. And at the age of 12, gosh, it's so funny. I was watching this show called Jenny Jones. And some of your folks might recall this show. And
Yep.
I saw this little kid on stage, and this little kid had just finished singing at the White House with their choir. And I said, oh my gosh, if this little kid can sing at their choir, then why can't I? And so at the age of 12, I started writing letters to the White House. So that's like where I was thinking. Fast forward that story, I ended up singing at the White House with my choir at the age of 14. But that's like Syama at a young age. I grew up in a small apartment and I went to all incredible private schools. I was the smart kid on financial aid in very small elite schools. And so that also was like a incredible window into what was possible with money, but it was also really confusing. I didn't really understand what people did for work or why our circumstances were the way that they were. And so that part was confusing, but also gave me a lot of like drive to freaking figure it out. And like, all right, if it's going to change in this world, I'm going to need to figure out how to do that. And so also around that age of 9, 10 years old, I was writing letters to my senators. I was telling them kids needed the right to vote because I thought the idiots around me were all adults. I was published in like environmental kids journals around, I don't know, some silly poetry, but I was definitely like, I'm on this planet to do something and shake it up. And I do not like my circumstances. And so I am determined to change it.
That is incredible. I don't even know at 9 or 10 years old that I knew what a senator was at that point, but that's incredible. Imagine if all kids did that. That's great. So, okay. So then that then drove you through high school, college, and then what did that ultimately mean for a first job?
Yeah. So in high school, I knew that I loved fashion. So I should also mention my mother was a model when she came to this country and ended up studying accounting and bookkeeping. But my mother was very gorgeous. She's still good looking now, but she was gorgeous when I was younger. And I was like, wow, fashion and makeup and all these things. And so I also knew that I needed to study business because most immigrant parents will tell you, you got to study business, doctor, lawyer, or business. So I feel like I didn't have much choice here, but in university, I ended up studying economics and philosophy because as Marcia, I can't stop thinking so deeply. So when I ended up graduating through the panic of what am I going to be for the rest of my life, I ended up landing my first job at Macy's in their business development program. And so I was being trained to be a buyer and a planner. And so for me, it was almost like the entry into this incredible world of fashion and clothing and all these things that I already loved throughout my younger years, plus like business. And I remember this moment where I had to price and buy 20,000 red sweaters for the holiday. Must have been 23 years old. And I was like, wow, what a Machiavelli moment. I get to decide how people are going to relate to buying this red sweater, and it's going to be in all these doors. And so I don't know. I think it turned me on to controlling the world in some devious way. But that was my first job was my first big moment was buying 20,000 red sweaters and trying to price them so that people would buy them.
And did they buy them?
They did buy them, which was great. Yeah,
What'd the
it
sweater
was.
look like? Tell us about it.
It was like a charter. You remember Charter Club?
Oh,
It's a
yeah, yeah,
it
yeah.
was a Charter Club sweater and cable knit, and it was this like wonderful shade of a deep sort of holiday red. And I think it was like I think I priced it out. It was like 29.99. And then you obviously at Macy's, you price everything for a markdown. So,
Right.
and I was like, "All right, so eventually the sucker will sell at like 19.99." But it was really fun and engaged my mind and then also engaged my aesthetics. And those have been, come to think of it, two very big driving forces in all the things I do.
Amazing. It's
Yeah.
so funny that my first job was also in retail buying for May Company, and
Cool.
it ended up being owned by Macy's down the road. So how about that?
I know we love each other for so many reasons, and that's probably one that we didn't even realize.
That's right. Although at first my first buying job, I was in the China department. So
Uh,
that then now I have this love for dishes. And my husband has now banned me from buying any new dishes because he said, "Do you see how many dishes we own? You do not need any more dishes." But they're so pretty. And I just wanted all the dishes. Anyway, all right. So then retail, you started doing other things though after the buying jobs. And so tell me more about what you started building. You were consulting, you were helping people, you're helping people build their retail businesses. Talk to us about that.
Yeah. Yeah. So at Macy's, so after Macy's, I was like, I need something more exciting. And I wanted to be in luxury. I was like, God gave me like taste and preferences for nice things. So I need to go and exercise that and experience those things more. So after Macy's, I was one of the first few people actually in the Barneys.com like e-com division. And that was really exciting. Everyone loves Barney's. Too bad the younger generations will never know what it's like, but my gosh, like what an incredible experience. And it was there that I actually got my first taste of working with emerging market brands. And I would see all these incredible brands that had beautiful product, but didn't understand distribution, pricing, business modeling. And so I could start to see like how these smaller companies were suffering. I was at a young age, but I knew that I wanted to have my own practice and start my own business. I also knew at that time that I'd need to have a few more corporate wins for being so young for people to take me seriously. So, what I started to do was put down the list of things I wanted to accomplish before I would quit and look for something else. And so I started approaching my corporate work like a list of to dos. I want to get this kind of a job where I can hit these metrics and then move on. So after Barney's, I ended up leading the Gucci outlet division. And so that was really exciting. Another way to cross things off my list. And then I ended up deciding at that time it was ready for me to start my business. And so in 2012, I launched my first company called Scaling Retail and had found myself out in Los Angeles at that time in love and looking forward to getting married to my husband then.
Amazing. And so
Yeah.
what exactly did scaling retail do?
Yeah, it was so cool, Marcia. I feel like today you have so many consultants and people who build things, but back then there was no one who was servicing that market that McKinsey and Accenture were turning away. And that was really
Mm.
the startup ecosystem globally for brands that were emergent and entering into the new DTC world, so direct to consumer world, but also looking to bridge this omni-channel concept that really was so new, right? 2012 was when Instagram really started. And so we had the opportunity, and I say we because it started as me, but then I had a team of about 13 at a point.
Wow.
And we would go into organizations and companies who are either launching or ready to scale and basically either co CEO them to help them reach particular milestones or help them with like brand development and like market positioning for when they were launching. And it was so amazing because I ended up working with people like the United Nations. We launched a brand out of Nepal, this Kashmir collective, into Japan and the US. I launched the first drop shipping luxury brand out of Tanzania that was actually taking products from 26 countries on the continent and then shipping them out to the US and to the UK. And so it was so cool because I got to basically pick projects that I thought were interesting, where they had great product and great vision, but also something new for me to chew on and to be like, how do we do this? And
Yeah.
so I knew more things about global logistics than I think I ever thought I would.
I know. I was thinking, like, how do you learn that?
Yeah, you get on the phone with like customer service people and you go, here's what I'm trying to do. How can you help me? And I would do that all the time. Like when we launched this United Nations brand in Japan, I was like, I don't know anyone in Japan. It's like, how are we gonna do this? And so I just remember like setting up a bunch of calls and being like, here is the vision, here are the outcomes that I want. How can you help me satisfy these outcomes? And then if they couldn't help me or it wasn't a good fit, I'd say, you know what? Who else do you know who might be someone good for me to talk to?
Mm.
And so it was really a spidery situation in figuring out the right people, conversations to almost make anything happen. It's like someone's gotta have the information.
Yeah, that's incredible. I
Mm.
love that. I remember talking to you about one of my past guests who had, like, in 45 days stood up like a whole China facility, and I was like blown away by it. And you're like, oh, yeah, I could do that. And I'm like, oh, okay. All right. That's just something to do on a Tuesday.
It's really funny how retail has evolved in so many ways, like from a marketing side of things, but really it's formulaic. And once you know what ducks need to go in what order, it's again pretty easy to cross it off. The thing that I can't do and could never do for anyone else is give them vision of what they wanted. As soon as someone was like, here's what I'm going for, here's what I want, getting it done was pretty easy. But so launching something in 45 days in China, like, yeah, as long as you know what you want and what your success metrics look like.
I love that. I think the theme here is if you put your mind to it, you can do it.
Totally. And if you can see it, right, and you believe in yourself, almost I think anything is really possible. Like it's really incredible to know that we are truly limited by our own conceptions of ourselves and
Mhm.
holding that at bay and working with that as like you continue to build and launch things. It's wow to know that you are your own biggest opportunity and limitation factor is liberating, but also terrifying because it'd be so much easier if I could blame someone else.
That's a good point. So you have this like deep thinking philosophy mind, and you are really good at logistics and getting things done, which I think leads us to a really great pivot into the conversation of Wealth Catalyst, because Wealth Catalyst is a lot of deep thinking in how to get more people, especially women, to take agency over not just their financial situations, but over their life so that they are in better alignment with their own values and what it is that they want to happen in their life. Is that fair?
Right. That is a fantastic summary. You, Marcia, you nailed it.
So I know I came to the Wealth Catalyst Summit in New York City in May of 2025. It was absolutely fabulous. It was the first time I was ever in a room full of women talking about money in the way that you presented it. It was a way that we could actually talk about things that we don't normally get to talk about. And really, as a collective, it wasn't people on stage talking to us or at us. It was more of a group conversation and learning about all of these different things that I know. I think I'm relatively well versed in alternative assets. And I realized at that summit that I think I have quite a bit I still need to learn in a lot of other categories besides just early stage investing. So I just found it to be so eye opening and also empowering. And so tell us about that journey from this past year and then how it has led into what's happening in 2026.
Yeah, it's really fascinating because over the last 6 years, I have come to learn that how we fundamentally have been taught, so like education, especially in the financial world, how women make decisions, what are the things that are wrong, what can we do right? Everything we did with these summits and how we've built this has been totally different in the way the industry has put forward knowledge and information. And so you really nailed it, which is this isn't about experts telling you what to do. This is about women sharing what they are doing and understanding what the different pathways are so that one can make their own decision for themselves. And so that is something we have fundamentally gotten wrong. Women have been infantilized. Hey, don't worry about the stock market and don't worry about this and give us your money and it'll be safe. Really not understanding that not all of us, A, have the luxury of playing it safe. So safety is really for those who are like, oh, I know I'm going to have enough money at this time. I don't need to take bigger bets or bigger risks. But also, safety implies that we don't have the capacity to learn and understand things and that we're not able to make good decisions for ourselves. So, the entire framework of how our podcast, our Substack, the summits, these salons we've done are really oriented is around first person experience sharing. And what is it that we can learn and see in other people of ourselves so that we realize we're not ahead, we're not behind. We are tracking to this beautiful story of our lives. And what's impressive is that all of these women who've come together, especially you, are so brilliant and are so accomplished. And this is probably for the first time ever a space where women can stand in their brilliance and their accomplishments and be like, I wanna learn and expand, and that is truly what I believe growth is. How do we acknowledge who we are and what we've done and feel safe enough to learn from our peers about things we don't know to make even better decisions? And so our learning, our wealth building, our wealth deployment never ends, right, when we approach it that way. And as we're looking into 2026, what is really exciting is it's been very clear from the beginning that these events started in San Francisco and New York because honestly, these are places I've lived. I grew up in San Francisco, lived in New York for 10 years, in LA for 10 years, back to San Francisco. And so those are places where I'm like, okay, girlfriends are there, people are there, like industry is there. But I knew in my heart from the very beginning that this was a message that needed to reach on a national scale the rooms, the hearts, the minds of so many women who are ready to be activated with their money, right? To have some agency and to truly see what's possible. And in 2026, I believe it is more critical now than ever to see hope and possibility in the world and to be able to claim our own ability to contribute to the world we want to see. And I'm very cognizant that we all have different values. We want different things in our lives. Money is not linear. The cash outflow, cash inflow is as complicated as any other aspect of who we are and our identities. But if we can come together and share and be able to hold the space, then literally the pie gets bigger. It's not that we're fighting over the same things. We're actually expanding possibilities and rising up to a better future that we each individually want to see. So that is on the horizon for next year. I'm so grateful for your leadership and love and support and guidance as we are building out this programming for next year. But 2026 is like 32 city nationwide tour, two big summits. capital agency and possibility around the country, and really women rising up to claim their own right to a bigger pie and to a better future.
I love everything about that. Can't wait to be a part of it. So, when you say the 32 city tour, explain exactly like what that means and what people could expect if you are coming to their city.
Yeah, well, depending on where they're going, they'll see you too. So that
Yes.
so it's a great
Yay.
twofer. But really the idea is to enter into spaces. Some of them will be large rooms, some will be beautiful homes. The idea is to come together in groups of 25, sometimes 40, sometimes larger, but really to come to understand what it is that we can do together when we share what's possible and what we have done. And so a big component of that is leveling the playing field. If you've ever been into a room where someone says, "How many people have been divorced?" And I raise my hand, all of a sudden, over half the room might raise their hand. Or I
Right.
say, "How many people have invested money and lost some?" And I put my hand up, and then all of a sudden, everyone's, "Yeah, me too." So it's really about taking the hype out of some of these things that you know well from your book that can bring us shame and guilt and make us feel poorly, but to really normalize these processes and then to also share these things that we have been experiencing. So the events are about 3 hours long, delicious things to eat, wonderful things to drink, but ultimately really anchored in what's possible with our money. And so I think people who attend can really expect to be ignited with new ideas, right? New hope. And that is why we're calling this the Freedom Tour, because without the ability to invest in the people, businesses, and ideas that we believe in, right? To be able to protect our families and our communities, we don't have freedom. And so capital agency is freedom.
I love that. So people should definitely subscribe to your Substack. And by the way, you did a video Substack the other day, which
Right.
is so cool. It was so neat. So tell us a little bit about that, but also recently you gave us a visual of what the Wealth Catalyst is all about with all of the things that kind of are incorporated, the podcast, you have a course, the tour. So tell us what that is all about.
Yeah, Substack has been so fun, Marcia. I was like going live and I was like, oh my God, I'm like on live camera now.
Sure.
I was like, this is pretty cool. And then I was like, this is dangerous. I
Who
was
knows
like,
what she'll say?
totally all the things. Substack has been wonderful because this year on my vision board, one of the phrases on there was, you can't hide who you are.
Mm.
And so this year for me has been a real, like taking layers off of my story, of my identity, of my hopes and dreams in the world. What is it that who am I and what is it that I want? And Substack has become this beautiful, easy way to publish the things that I'm thinking about and the ways in which I'm connecting new ideas and how these synapses are firing. And so it's been this very like real time way of thinking about money, identity, freedom, and I'm so grateful to have that as an outlet. And as a result of that, it's been growing. There's nothing more magical, and I know you'll relate to this, is putting something down and having someone else pick it up and being like,
Mhm.
"Yes, I see you. I understand you." And that to me is so magical. So Substack has been an incredible part of that journey for me. Now, this ecosystem that we have built out is exciting because what I did is I didn't look around and say, how do I become like these other people? I actually looked inward and I said, who am I and how do I want to show up in the world and how am I in best contribution to people? And so we're building a business model around that. And this company, Wealth Catalyst, is also co-founded by my second greatest and most amazing husband, John Bunten. And so what's also been incredible has been looking at this through the lens of, and your listeners might recognize the author Gay Hendricks and his concepts around zone of genius work. But really, it's John and I have sat down and said, what are the areas that are truly my zone of genius and what are the ways in which I can best show up for the vision of the world I want. And so this ecosystem is built out of something I believe is sustainable for me because it's not rooted in what someone else is doing. And so the framework of it and how we're looking at this is we have our more national media properties. So the podcast, the Substack, the podcast. I loved interviewing you, Marcia, this beautiful first person experience sharing. Those things are so exciting and robust. And then we move up into different levels of experience. And for me, our summits are really some of these beautiful flagship moments where women come together who are brilliant and successful, and they can finally step out from behind their LinkedIn profiles and say, just because I run $100 million P&L doesn't mean that like I have my together. So,
Right.
yeah, it's not always one to one. We obviously have the salon tour that we're doing that's really meant to bring people into community. And then we have retreats. And actually, John and I are producing an incredible couples retreat at the end of February. And what I think is so valuable is in this world of talking about women and wealth, well, if you are a woman who's in a significant othered relationship, it's likely two of you who are making decisions.
Right.
And being on the same page about what that vision looks like is mission critical. One of the things that was really a huge detriment to my first marriage was that we had all the things together on a spreadsheet and it like looked really good and we were really good at managing sort of the numbers, but we were really bad at having a collective wealth vision together.
Mm,
What is the money for exactly? And like how do we know what really is making us happy and how do we not hold ourselves static to maybe the people who we used to be when we first decided what those numbers were going to look like and how we were going to invest that money. So I'm really excited because our retreats, and this one in particular, John and I are leading it together. And it's really not about being prescriptive because nothing we do is about telling you what to do, but creating a safe space for couples to come together and say, what do we actually want in this world? And trust me, if you know what you want in this world together, all the other little tiny things become so much easier because there's a larger goal. If you really
totally.
don't know what the whole thing is for, then you might be fighting over dollars on a spreadsheet, but it's for what purpose? And so, anyway, the retreats are a big part of this. And then the last component of this is our course. And so that is called Confident and in Control. And that really came out of a workshop that I was asked to teach earlier this year that was really around like, how do you take these principles that I've learned from the last 6 years of basically trying to figure out my own stuff and being in rooms with women and being active and vocal in the space? How do I put together a framework that really helps women no matter how much money they have in their bank account? And certainly we both know billionaires with poverty consciousness, right? So like how much you have doesn't necessarily correlate to how you feel. And
That's
so
right. Yeah.
putting together a framework to really help women say, okay, what are the ways in which I can meet myself to where I am today? And that is across understanding your own risk, understanding the narrative stories of your life, but also being like, can I actually be curious about? Where's the buffet of things that I can opt in to learn from? And the one component I think of this that's so valuable is because of the ways in which we've integrated this podcast, this first person storytelling, sourcing from all of our speakers, resources, and tools, is that within this course, there are so many recommended resources from women like you, Marcia, and like your books and your podcast, and so many others, such that it's not really like, here's what Shama thinks. It's here's what all these incredible women are offering. And here are some podcast episodes to listen to help guide you on this process on your own. And so I like that it's holistic like that.
I think that's magical. Absolutely. So when we talk a lot about wealth and women, and a lot of things are, hey, this is for women or that. But at the end of the day, to your point earlier, it is about people. And we are certainly not against men in any way. I always want to say 100%. I want there to be a lot of a lot of inclusivity with what we're talking about and the things that we're doing and how we're relating to each other. And imagine if all of us felt the same way about how to bring the innovations to life that we'd want to see, regardless of who is running the company or who thought of it. So I can't let you go without you explaining a little bit more about your amazing husband and how he has been an such an integral part of the Wealth Catalyst and how he is helping to build this vision that you both have.
What's so powerful is through influencing the financial lives of women, you influence the lives of families, of communities, and dot, 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 men. So
Right.
there is an entire sort of upliftment universally when women have agency, feel confident, and feel empowered to make smart decisions. And John's story, he and I come to this work very differently. He grew up in a home where his mother did not have a good, solid financial understanding of what was possible for her. That put John, unfortunately, in some dangerous situations as she got remarried and was navigating what her young life was looking like. And so John really had to experience firsthand what it was like to be a man and a child of of a home that was dysfunctional, and what it looks like when the women in his life are not empowered to make the right decisions. Also, some of the greatest leaders and mentors that John has had in his military career were from women. When he tells stories of incredible leadership, often there are great women who accompany at the heads of those stories. But John has really come to this work out of its equal desire to change the world and to find the entry points where actually the work is needed. And so we are both in agreement that there are two major components that are coming together in this incredible moment. One is obviously the great wealth transfer. The number keeps inching up as far as how much money women are going to receive.
Right.
That's very exciting, also terrifying if they're not empowered with agency. And then the other thing is just simply the sheer snowballing of time and deregulation around things that women can do with their money and sort of the opportunities for women to grow their capital. And so there's this inflection point where even if you're not making money from this inheritance, which I will not be, you will be at a certain level in your life because of this maturation where you have control of more capital in your own life than you ever would have had the opportunity to. And so John and I really see this work together around empowering women and really just the conversation around hope, possibility, and capital agency, combined with also this work with couples on making sure that there's a holistic vision. Because as we both know, you go to an event and you feel great about something, but if you're in a relationship, you have to go home and somehow translate that. Like, how do you
Yeah.
translate the high you came off of in order to have a high in the relationship and invigorate that? So I'm so fortunate and blessed. John is a multi-time CEO and founder. He's had an incredible business life and career. We both met at a entrepreneurs organization conference, which is really awesome to be like, we didn't meet on an app. We met in person
In real
at a
life.
business
Yeah.
conference. Totally. But we met around this topic of business and spirituality. And I always like to tell people, if you really want to meet God, go start a company. It's really the fastest way to understanding like who you are in this world is to go out there and put yourself on the line.
I completely agree. Building a company is very hard. Hard work. Yeah,
Very hard.
very hard. And that's why we do all the things we do in order to help people, especially women, be able to do that and have the resources that they need. Well, Shama, I could sit here and talk to you all day long.
Oh,
And I
please.
love
Why don't we?
I
Why don't
love
we,
all the
Marcia?
stories that you have. And people will just need to keep following you and me for what's going to happen in 2026 with the Freedom Tour and the summits. And we'll definitely put in the show notes links to your Substack, how to buy tickets to the summits, and to be able to follow the tour.
Well, Marcia, I am so grateful for all the work you've done in this world to really evangelize a better future and everything you do every day to evangelize the people you care about. And I'm fortunate to get to call you a friend, a mentor, and someone who I'm so thrilled and excited to continue building with. So thank you for having me here today.
Well, thank you for being here. Thanks for listening. To connect with me, visit my website at marciadawood.com. And please subscribe, follow, and leave a review. It helps the podcast get seen by more people. And remember, you can also find the Angel Next Door podcast on YouTube too. And if you're looking to learn more about investing in the changes you want to see in the world, sign up for Ann and Bill Payne's ACA Angel University classes. Go to theangelcapitalassociation.org, all one word, to find out the schedule, and classes are now available on demand. Many classes are offered, everything from angel investing basics, which include fundamentals, risk, due diligence, term sheets, valuations, returns and portfolio strategy, and even a class on group formation. There's even a deeper dive where you can get advanced classes, including capitalization tables, startup boards, and exit strategies. If you're not already a member of the Angel Capital Association, you can become one for a low price that will give you unparalleled access to discounts, free webinars with a huge archive of content, networking opportunities, and much more. We'd love to have you join us. All content for this website is informational and not intended to serve as legal, tax, accounting, or investing advice. While Marcia, that's me, does serve on the SEC Small Business Capital Formation Advisory Committee, my views are my own and not the views of the SEC or my fellow colleagues on the committee. Our speakers and hosts are thoughtfully selected for their educational value, but their opinions are their own and do not necessarily represent the views of the host, me, or the Angel Capital Association, and neither specifically endorse the use of presenters' products or services. Listeners of the podcast should consult their own tax, investing, legal, or accounting advisors before making important financial decisions. All warranties, including accuracy, completeness, and suitability for specific purpose, are disclaimed.